Hey everybody, this is Perch. So, crazy story here in the form of an online spat between Tom King and Tom Brevoort, and really, it's not a spat. That would indicate that it's going two ways. It's really just a case of Tom King made a statement, Tom Brevoort made a statement, and lots of people, there was some shots fired, and now here we go. So, what exactly happened? Well, to understand this, you have to explain who Mark Doyle is. Mark Doyle was a senior editor of the Batman books and was a pretty established person, I would say, in the DC universe. He's somebody that gave Scott Snyder quite a lot of help and support, and I think arguably, I think you could argue that without Mark Doyle, Scott Snyder would have not come close to achieving what he achieved. You have some other books that were under his watch, including the White Knight series, including some of the other pieces, and some of the chances that were taken on people like Tom King that Mark Doyle helped put into place and kind of shepherd those Bat books. And if we're just being really blunt about it, meaning take whatever else you think you know and go purely by the numbers, Mark Doyle sat on a franchise that largely carried DC for many years. The Batman franchise has been bedrock in terms of sales, in terms of numbers. So Mark Doyle was part of the layoffs as they happened with and when Warner Media did their large layoffs. He was probably, along with Bob Harris, was one of those more surprising names. Bobby Chase, Mark Doyle, those are probably the three big names gone. And arguably, Mark Doyle was a huge hit, although his career had gone sideways a little bit. Now, Tom King comes in and says the transcendent, brilliant, visionary editor Mark Doyle is leaving DC this week. I would not have a career without Mark. This is true. He gave me my first gig, my first ongoing, made me take insane risks on big stages. In every genre, he tirelessly pushed comics to be better. A true legend. Okay. What could possibly be wrong with that? It's a simple statement. Tom King's been kind of quiet on Twitter ever since he went after Jay Lee, and that kind of blew up in his face, to say the least. And so he posts this, and no problems, right? Almost 1,000 likes. Things are going well. An hour later, Tom Brevoort, who is the editor in chief at Marvel Comics, different company, comes in and says, "Didn't you force him off the Batman titles and then crow about it in an interview? It's a bit odious to cry over the bodies when you had a hand in killing them." That's a bold statement. So, what exactly is Tom Brevoort talking about? Well, he's talking about an interview that he gave, which basically said, Batman number 24, there are two editors listed for that book. We switched editors halfway through. It's not normal. It's very weird, says Tom King in this interview. Tom King says, I got in a big fight with my editor, who's Mark Doyle, an editor I love, Mark Doyle. He wanted to bring in an artist on it who had not worked on the book before. I knew this was a big moment. Batman proposing to Catwoman. Now, keep in mind, this was the non-wedding that didn't happen, but sure. You're going to turn on Twitter. There's going to be that stupid image. I want this to be an image with David, meaning David Finch. I want him to draw this issue. No, David's too busy going on vacation, says Mark Doyle. Just call him. We got in a big fight over it. In the end, we switched editors and got David, and that's how we brought Jamie Rich on the book, meaning Tom King got in a big fight, threw a tantrum, got David Finch on the book he wanted, and got Mark Doyle shuffled off to the side, and in came Jamie Rich as an editor. Basically said, I'm not going to work with this guy, and that's what happened. His third paragraph is the most revealing one. Tom King says, that's something I could not do earlier in my career. Say, I'm putting my foot down. That's something you can only say when you have had a lot of success. When you first come in, you have no power at all. You're at the whim of your editors, who are in control of whether you eat this day. It's that third paragraph that is telling about Tom King's mentality. He told this story for one reason, and that story is to explain that he has made it, that he has power, that he now can put his foot down and can demand that people be taken off the books. And in this case, he got Mark Doyle removed from his title because he wanted to use an artist who was on vacation and probably cost more. And that was what he insisted on having happen for this moment that was an engagement that would not actually lead to a wedding. It was leading to a bat and switch, pardon the pun, of having the wedding not happen, even though they also promoted this to comic shops. Now, there's a lot of ways, you can have a lot of sides in this, but I'll give you a clear one from my perspective. I think that this behavior that kind of played out here, and the surprising thing in all of it is that Tom Brevoort, not a man that is usually well known for kind of sticking up for people and saying things like this. This is not a typical moment from old Tom Brevoort. He it is it is surprising that he did this, but he is 100% right. Tom King did not have to give an interview bragging about how powerful he was. He did not have to give an interview talking about how he got an editor off the book, and that shows that he's made it. He did not tell the story from the standpoint of, hey, we had this argument, and I really wanted to use this artist, and the other person didn't, and we battled back and forth, and unfortunately, it resulted in my friend was leaving the book, and I felt bad about it, and it was one of those things that it was an awkward moment. He didn't tell a story that way. He told the story to get to the third paragraph, and that third paragraph is, hooray, I'm powerful. I can get people taken off a book. I can put my foot down. Those are his words, not mine. And that was revealing of who Tom King is. Keep in mind that in the months that would follow, the wedding that didn't happen was heavily promoted by DC. They got comic shops, including mine, to buy in to various issues. They got readers to buy in to special anniversary issues, to spend more money, to take cash out of their pockets in order to, go in on this wedding that was not true. They knew it all along that this wedding was not going to happen. Tom King has also admitted that he knew he wasn't actually going to do this. And it's one thing to, set up a twist and then not deliver on this. It's one thing. But it's another thing when that twist involves, as part of it, taking a bunch of money, i.e. conning people out of their cash to fund and support this thing you're not going to deliver on, particularly at a time when the industry is weak. That's what happened. And as there was a very large backlash, the cowardly thing that followed this was Tom King announced he was getting so many death threats, so many, that he had to hire a bodyguard to follow him around San Diego Comic-Con, that it was so dangerous for him that he had to hire a bodyguard to basically protect himself because he had so many death threats. And he posts this, and a lot of people say this is terrible, toxic fandom. How dare people take it this far? Death threats are never okay. Lots and lots of outrage from within the comics industry and with supporters and fans talking about how it is totally unacceptable and what a brave man Tom King is for going to the convention despite the fact that he's under death watch. He's got people who want to kill him because of this. And sure enough, he shows up at San Diego Comic-Con with a very large guy shadowing him around, but it turns out to be a PR stunt. The guy who was shadowing him was not a bodyguard, it was a friend, and it was all part of the overall optics or PR or kind of joke that Tom King wanted to pull. And when you look back on it in hindsight, it is impossible not to look at it and go, here was a case where you had a writer, got his editor fired, fired, taken off the book. And by the way, the fact that Mark Doyle was laid off, you have to imagine that he was pulling in a higher salary because he was in the Bat titles and then suddenly removed from the core Batman title. And this put a target on his back. If Mark Doyle was still editing the Batman line of comics, I have 100% certainty he would still be with the company today. However, here we are. So we get to this convention and we roll this scam about needing a bodyguard to kind of gain sympathy, and it paints a certain picture. The part about all this that's kind of surprising to me is that this is not a new story. The idea of creators getting to a certain position of power and then throwing a fit or throwing a tantrum or doing things online or wherever they happen to be in order to get their way and get people moved off their books is not new. John Byrne has done it many times when he was at Marvel, and I believe at DC as well. There have been many creators who pulled these stunts over the years. The part that is new in all this is that it, like, rather than maintain the illusion of oh, this is kind of behind the scenes stuff, it got shot out into the open. Instead of keeping the lie going, we just went out with it. And that is, I would never have guessed in a million years that was going to come from Tom Brevoort, but here we are. And the nice part, I guess, the optimistic, the glass half full aspect of all this is maybe this will put an end to some of the backstabbing shenanigans that often go on in comics, where you do get people who, jockey to get editors removed from their books, or push to get this person in trouble or that person in trouble to get their way. And it starts, maybe by putting this out into the open, it will crack down on some of this behavior and will start operating like a professional business again. That would be absolutely brilliant. But it is an amazing spectacle, and I think here we are, and I find myself thankful to Tom Brevoort, of all people, not a guy I see eye to eye with on a normal basis. I'd say thank you for calling it out. It was absolutely correct to call it out. And I mean, I'm tired of, I hate the fake sympathy. I hate the people who, this was really common in wrestling, where somebody, you'd have promoters, and you have storyline writers, and you have bookers who would bury their wrestlers. They would absolutely, set them up. They would do cruel stunts. They would get them out of paydays. They would find out ways to get them off the pay-per-view so they don't get paid for certain events. And then the wrestler would die, and there'd be this, such a heartfelt tribute from the same people who spent much of their career screwing these people over. And I hate it. I hate that. I think fair should be fair. Say what you mean. Put it out there. It's why I get in trouble with the comic skate side of the world. It's why I get in trouble with the anti-comic skate side of the world. I hate the duplicity. Fair is fair. Put it out. I hate the woe is me crap that goes on. It's why some of the bigger YouTube people out there have talked about, every now and then they throw in some shade into their videos about how, oh, I hate that Perch guy, or I don't like him because of this or that. It's like, look, you can say whatever you want, but fair should be fair. You can't say one thing in public and then go around and pull a bunch of slimy shit in the background. You can't. Shouldn't. You do. So it's not, you can't. You absolutely can do that. You should not do that. Certainly not, and pretend you're a good guy in the process. So that's me. I prefer to have it out on the table. For good, for bad, for whatever it happens to be, I prefer to just have it out there. And maybe that offends people on various sides from time to time. So be it. But I think that this kind of sliminess that goes on is not helpful to comics. It doesn't create better stories. It doesn't create better working environments. It doesn't do anything positive. And so maybe this example is just one way of calling somebody on it. And hope maybe there's a lesson to be learned in this. Odds are not. I mean, these things come out, and then the world finds a way to recalibrate itself back to just how it was. But at least for a brief moment, the scales were lifted, and we got a little peek at, you do a bunch of things in the background to kind of pat yourself on the back and to get your own power going. And, you don't get to then turn around and pretend to be sorry about it. I just, you're going to get held to that. I don't hate Tom King for the reasons a lot of other people do. I see people doing the Tom, low T King, and kind of this kind of all that kind of stuff. I've read Tom King stories. I've absolutely enjoyed. Absolutely. I do like Vision. I think that was a great comic. I've read Tom King books. I think were terrible. I think as a creator, lots of people write things I like and don't like. I don't think there's a single person out there, artist, writer, anyone, who has a 100% track record. And anybody who says they've liked 100% of every single thing everybody's done is full of it. There's nobody. Everybody has had a stinker out there. It's just that's normal. There's nothing wrong about that. And I certainly would not dislike or hate a creator because they wrote something I didn't like. That's a ridiculous reason to hate someone. But these kinds of mean girl high school kind of political crap, trying to get some cred when you were a person who helped lead to this result, yeah, yeah, that needs to be called out, and that's a perfectly good thing to roast somebody for. So I don't know. What do you think? I know from the comments in the channel, there's not a ton of people that are huge Tom King fans here. I know that he's not a beloved figure. I do wish my channel was a little bit more even, where I had people like defending him and then hating him, kind of as a split group. But when you see stuff like this, it's hard to come out and say, "Well, look at the good part, look at the bad part." It's a lousy thing, and you know what? Credit is where credit's due. Good for Tom Brevoort for calling it out, hands down. Good for him. What do you think about all this? Leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notification. Most importantly, though, as always, thanks for your opinion and thanks for listening.